welcome everyone to Hints, Tips and Troubleshooting, presented by me, Cherry. I'm the support desk manager here at Meditech, so some of you may or may not have spoken to me before. It's really good to see you all here today. So what will I be covering with you today? We're going to be covering searching and refining, how to manage saved searches in priority, macros, business rules and autofill rules, which come under the umbrella of automations, record colouring. I will be mentioning the user interface guide and how to access that. And then I want to talk about troubleshooting common issues. So these are going to be our 5 most frequently raised service calls. There will be time for questions in the auditorium at the end of the day. So if there is anything that you want to know more or have a question about, please do note it down and ask. So I want to start off with searching and refining. So there's some fantastic built-in search tools in priority. There's 2 types of search that I want to cover, the entity search and the document search. So the entity search is essentially a way for you to search through all of the items that live in Priority's rather large menu system. So an entity is classed as a report, a form, a procedure, a document or a wizard. So these are, like I said, all things you can find in the menu. So you might not necessarily know where that is, you want to actually know how to search through it. So the other type of search is the document search, which searches by your actual data. So this is searching for an order by an order number without having to open the form first and query for it. Searching for a customer by, for example, just their phone number, who called me. Put the phone number in and find out which customer it belongs to. There's a lot you can do with a document search. I use it myself to manage service calls in Priority, and I find it makes my day a lot more efficient than having to open the form and search for things manually. So there is a bit of configuration required with document search, so if you do need help setting this up, do contact support. We'll be happy to help and show you how to set that up to your own needs and make sure the services and relevant server-side things are running. I have actually noticed that there's quite a lot of Priority users, companies using Priority that are not taking advantage of this at the moment, and it's super easy to use. So hopefully after seeing it today, you'll want to get stuck into it. So like I said, you may need to contact support to help get that set up, and I encourage you to do so. So I want to demonstrate the 2 types of search. So going onto my home page, I've got this little magnifying glass at the top left, right next to the menu. So this is our entity search. Because it's on the same bar as the menu, it's essentially is the way I remember it, is this searching through the menu. Gives you an option for a keyword, so transfer. Lots of different types of transfer in Priority, so I'm expecting to have a lot of results. As expected, we've got warehouse transfer twice, we've got finalised bank transfers, transfer opening balances. Now the way you can tell the difference between what each one is to look at the icon to the left of it. So for a form, it's an F. For a report, it's an R. For a program, it's a P. We've also got D for document, W for wizard. So the warehouse transfers, I can tell the first one is the form because it's got the F by it. Now we get a few options at the bottom. If you're not actually sure what you're looking for, you can use the help button. It gives you the Priority built-in help that describes what the entity is that you're highlighted on. You get the more options, so you can view where this actually lives in the menu by using the path option. You can copy the path if you want to send it to someone else. You can add it to your homepage, add it to your favourites, etc. There's quite a lot of options in here. Now, what I want to do is run it, and that will open the entity for you. So that was an example of searching for an entity. You see it stays open behind the item you opened, just in case you did open it and it's wrong. You go right back to the search that you already had open. The document search is this search bar. So you see if I get rid of the input, it says search customers, parts, documents, and more. So I can put in anything from a sales order number, whatever you've got configured for. So in my example, I'm going to type in *32, anything ending in number 32. You can see before I've even executed the search, we've got a preview of what may be the expected results. So we've got sales order, purchase order ending in 32. Now I'm not sure what I want, so I'm going to press the actual search button. And you'll see we've got 40 results. That can be refined by date or by type. I'm going to refine this particular search by part, because I was actually looking for a part. You can see now a few select details, which you can configure, by the way. You can configure what details show in the search results and help you decide, therefore, which record it is you need. So you can then click through and open the record directly from the search results. So you can do that by basis, like I said, order number. You can do it by customer phone number, and anything you like, really. If there's a column in priority, you can probably set it up to be searched by. So moving on to saved searches. Priority offers the ability to save searches in a given form. So you may also know saved searches as saved queries. I'm just going to demonstrate how to create a couple of saved searches in a form and how to set one as the default search when the form opens and how to access them later. So using my entity search that I've just demonstrated, I want to go into my purchase orders form. Select the one I want, run it. Now you notice at the top we've got our saved searches with our little filter icon and the option to create a new search when I click into there. Now Priority have made quite a lot of improvements to how this bit of the system works. It's a bit more intuitive now. You can actually search for a field by typing for it. I can search, for example, for next signature, which is the column that indicates that someone is waiting to authorize the document. So after I've selected next signature, I can then use the drop down to see all of the available users. Again, it's more intuitive now. I can search. I don't have to scroll through a whole list. I can actually search. So searching for myself, I can tick myself on there. You can add multiple different people, which you couldn't always do. For this example, I'm going to leave it as just me. You can press this plus button to give another criteria. So I want to actually only filter it by ones that the status equals begin authorization or pending authorization. Pending auth. I can filter that by many statuses if I want. I'm just going to leave it at one for now. So new search, when next signature equals cherry, when status equals pending auth. At the bottom we've got a save button, so waiting for me to auth. When you press the save and search button, you get a prompt and it asks you whether you want to actually save this search as the default when you open the form. And I'm going to select yes, because logically when I open the form I want it to show me things that are waiting for authorization where I'm in the next signature box. So if I now close the purchase order form and open it again, you'll see it's ran that query straight away when I've opened the form. So there is a program the system manager can run to copy queries from one user to another. So if you actually want to enforce what queries are saved and running for users, you can do that. You can set them all up for one particular user that you're logged in as and then copy it out to everyone. You'll see at the top, rather than saved queries, it now says the name of the query that I've saved. And if I click on the drop down, I can create a new search. So I may want to search for purchase orders assigned to people in my team. So assigned to equals. Now I want to select more than one value now. I want to have things that are assigned to me. And I want to have things that are assigned to James. You'll see we've got two options now appearing. And I want to save this as assigned to PO team. When I click save and search, I get the same prompt again about wanting to make it the default search. Now, you can only have one at a time, so I'm going to say no, but it will run the search anyway. And you can see now I've got 74 results showing all different purchase orders assigned to me or to James. I can see at the top I've got my 2 queries here, and I can actually use my keyboard to access them. So Control 1 runs my first query, Control 2 runs my second query. So you can have keyboard shortcuts tied in so that it makes your life a bit quicker, a bit easier. So that was saved searches. Moving on to macros now. So macros save you time. They're essentially, if you're finding yourself repeating the same actions in priority over and over again, then you can create a macro which is essentially recording those actions into a recording and running them automatically without you having to click through some process again and again. You can also have recursive macros which are running a set of actions multiple times, for example, for a set of records. So what I want to show you really is a macro that authorizes a set of purchase orders. Maybe I've looked at a set of purchase orders and I've determined they do need to be authorized, but I don't want to click through each one and click the authorize and go back up and click down again. It just takes too long. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. So macros are actually set per user. So if you set a macro up and you're logged into priority, you can access that macro, but no one else can. But if you logged in as the super user, as tabular, then any macros defined under that user are available for all users. So if you want all of your users to have access to a macro, you want to do it as the super user. So I'm going to run my waiting for me to auth query. So these are some purchase orders. Maybe I've had a look at them, I've decided these are ready to go. Under our automations menu, see we've got our smiley robot. This is a new menu as of version 22 of Priority. It groups together your 3 automation tools. These are designed to save you time. So the macros shows you anything you've already defined, and you've got a play button at the bottom. This is your record button. So I want to record my macro. I'm going to give it a name. Authorized PO list. You can give it a keyboard shortcut as well, much like the saved queries, but you get to define it when you define the macro. I am going to leave that out, but I am going to tick the repeat box. So this is the difference between recording a set of actions that you can call upon once at a time, or setting it to repeat, so therefore it repeats itself a predetermined amount. So it will either repeat until the records are done on a page, or if you've got a lot of records, there's a system constant that defines how many times a macro can run as a maximum. So you might have that set as, for example, 100, because you want to just check there's not been any problems with it, rather than just letting it go and run on 1,000 records. So I'm going to set that to repeat, and I'm going to start recording. So using my keyboard, I want to hit F5 to get my list of sub-level forms up, go down to my order authorization, hit enter, tab along to the authorized tick box, tick it using my spacebar, escape back up, and the most important step of this is to move down to the next record. I've got some macro controls running in the corner. One of them is stop recording, so I want to stop my recording at this point. And the system notifies me that I've now got a macro saved with that list of actions. So to tell Priority actually what the series of actions were, I had to authorize one of the orders. So I can use F7 to hide that off my list. Now, going to my automations menu under macros, or using my keyboard shortcut if I set one, I can run the authorized PO list macro. So let's run it and see what happens. You can see there, it's going through my list. And then at the end, it gets to the end and it tries to exit the form. So I'm going to allow the exit. I'm experiencing a slight technical difficulty with stopping the macro, but that is not something that should affect you. And if you do experience that, please just let me know. I will have a look at it with you. But I'm just going to, for the purpose of the demonstration, move on. So That was macros. So next on the list is business rules. So business rules, they allow you to control and restrict how a form is used by your priority users. You may or may not have come across them before. It's always good to sort of refresh yourself with what they can give you, what options they can give you, and how they can save you time. So you can, they're used mostly for prevention of errors. You want to drive your workflow so that people can't put something in that's wrong or miss putting something in altogether. So I'm going to demonstrate how to create a simple business rule for you. So in our purchase orders form, under our automations menu, we've got define business rules. So you can give the rule a description. So in this case, I want to say details are missing. The actions you can set with a business rule vary. You can display an error, which stops the user altogether. They can't proceed until they've resolved the problem. A warning, which does allow the user to proceed, but it does pop something up on screen, so they're warned about it. Triggering an email to be sent is another common use of business rules, just to notify someone that something has happened or some bit of data has been filled in a certain way. There are other options in here, such as opening a task, sending a text message, push notification, etc., all of which are documented, and I'll show you how to find that documentation to sort of explore these options in more detail in one of my upcoming slides. So, display an error message. Please fill out the details before proceeding. If the value of, and I can search through my available columns here, is blank, you can have multiple conditions, and if you have multiple conditions, you use this plus to add more, use the cross to get rid of them, and if you've got more than one, you want to tell the system whether the rule will trigger whether all of the conditions are true or whether just any one of them are true, so you use the and or here. The valid for is important as well. You can actually set business rules up for a particular user or group, or you can set them for all users or just for yourself, so I'm going to set it for all users in this case. This takes me now back to the define business rules screen. So if you've got multiple rules, you'll see them all in here. You can actually copy them. If you've got a lot of rules that are similar, you don't have to start from scratch each time. You can use the copy button to copy and then modify the copy of the business rule. Back to the list. Now if I try and create a purchase order, the details are missing. If I come down to the order items, it won't let me proceed because the details are missing. This is the business rule in action. And if I do fill something in, then it will let me proceed. And we are indeed in the order items. So that's the business rules side of things. So moving on to autofill rules next. So autofill rules they're similar to business rules, but they, you may have heard of them being called data generators in older versions of Priority. They automate your process. Rather than setting errors, warnings, etc., they actually trigger data to be filled in certain fields based on data filled out in other fields. So if you've got a common relation where you're always filling something out based on a specific vendor, for example, you want to automate that and automate it for your users so that you don't have to have that manual input or room for error. So you should, you can manage this and copy these out, same as business rules, to your users as well. You can define whether they're for users in a certain privilege group or for everyone. So I'll demonstrate a simple autofill rule as well, because I've shown you the business rules. So under the automations menu, define autofill rules. What I might find is after setting that business rule, whenever I'm raising a purchase order for this particular vendor, I might find the details are always the same. So I want to just set a rule that fills out the details for me. That can be overridden, but I just want that to be a basis for when I fill that vendor in. So I'm going to tell the system, after updating the vendor number, set the details as appliance and then give the condition of the value of the vendor number is equal to, and then in the drop down it will give me my list of vendors. So I really want to show you the appliance for vendor EU vendor because I usually buy an appliance, I want that to be set. Same as business rules, you can have multiple conditions, and you can use the plus to add more, the cross to get rid of them, and you can set whether the autofill rule will trigger based on whether one of them is true or all of them. And like I mentioned when I was on the presentation slide, you can set it for who's applicable for it, so all users in this case. This is a similar screen to the business rules screen that I showed you. You can copy autofill rules if you've got a lot of similar rules and change the data in them, again, without having to start from scratch. Now, if I create another purchase order for the same vendor, you'll notice now the details fill in as appliance, and I'm able to proceed without the error message. So another common use I see for setting up autofill rules is actually authorizer lists. You may have like different authorizer lists based on different sets of vendors or vendor groups that you've got. So I find that often users will set up autofill rules to manage that side of things, because then it's enforced that the authorizer list has to be filled in based on those criteria that you've already set.
Can you do it for budgets and profit centers as well?
Yeah, this is relative to every form, any form you're on, you can automate that process. If you find yourself typing something in a lot, you can probably set up autofill rule for it, so definitely look into options of that.
Excuse me, is that only in the latest version?
No, autofill rules and business rules are in as far back as I can remember. They predate me rather, right way around. So if you're in probably pre-version 20, the autofill rules will be called data generators, but business rules have always been called business rules. But instead of the automations menu, which is new, you will find them actually under the burger menu, under design, business rules and data generators in here. And the only other difference is really is what Priority have added recently is the ability to have multiple selections, so is equal to, and then having lots and lots and lots of different criteria, whereas before it was a drop down of data and you could only really pick one thing. So it's just a bit more flexible now, but they have always existed and they will still give you a lot of options. So whatever version you're in, do look into those options. Now, moving on to record colouring. And I think this is my next slide after this, I'm going to cover where this is all documented, and that the documentation I'm going to mention is relative to the version you're on. So you'll be able to see exactly what options are available to you and how it will work. But record colouring I want to cover with you before I talk about that. So running my saved query assigned to PO team, you see I've got lots of different things and lots of different statuses, and record colouring, it's a visual tool, so it helps you sort of visualise margins, visualise where errors might be, visualise the difference between things. I consider it's like a business rule, but without popping up an error or warning. It's you can colour your records based on criteria. So it's contextual. If I want to colour purchase orders that are in draft a certain colour, I find a purchase order in draft, I'll right click on draft, I'll go into design, I'll define a record colour, draft needs to be red. And now you'll notice all of my draft purchase orders appear red on the screen. I'll do the same with a pending auth, and I'll set that as orange. And the authorized ones I want to be green. This is also carries through to the apps. So if you have mobile apps, they're based on forms, and the forms inherit these colours. So they actually have a nice coloured border around the records on the apps. So it looks slightly different, but it does carry through. This is, if you go to the main design menu and you go to the record colour, record colour, then you get the option to show the current record colours. Apologies, I keep hovering off that. There we go. So it shows you what you've got set up in the particular form that you've accessed this from. Now, the other useful thing to know about record colours is you can set it based on a range. So if I design record colour for the unit price, it gives you a range here. So any numerical field that you want to set a colour on will give you a range. So if I want to set between 0 and 10 as red, this will help me visualise if something is low. This is good for, if you have any fields that are related to margins or anything like that, that would be useful to set it up. If I put on a part, so 0, it's red. 9 stays red. 10 should stay red. Now if I put it as 11, it goes back black. So you can set lots of different range colours up. So if you want there to be sort of scaling, you can do that. And these are managed as part of the form design. So if you want to set these up for your users, you set it up, and then you run a program called copy form design, and you copy that out to your team so that they inherit the same record colours. So moving on to the documentation I mentioned. Everything I've covered, so from macros to the autofill rules to business rules, record colouring, etc., it's all accessible in the user interface guide. So you'll see at the top right of my screen, next to my name, I've got this help menu. The user interface guide is accessible through this menu. Now it's quite a large document. You'll see it's over 200 pages long. So what you really want to do is use Control F to search, and you can see there I've already searched for business rules, and you can it takes you to the page where these things are documented. So this is also linked to the version that you open the file from. So if you open it in version 19, you'll get the user interface guide for version 19. If you open it in version 22, you'll get the one for 22. If you open it in the Windows client version, you'll get the Windows client version with all the relative screenshots. So it's really detailed, and it covers a lot more options than I have time to today. So I really encourage you to use it. The benefit of this is that it's available for all of your users. It's not managed by privileges. It's there if someone's got access to priority. They've got access to the user interface guide. So moving on now to troubleshooting. So that's it for the demonstration of tools. What I really want to do is share my experience with you. I've been working in supporting people running Priority software for quite some time now, and I've been having a look through our calls, and I want to share what I consider to be the top 5 most popular frequent service calls that we get. So the first one is you may have seen this message before, so the unprepared forms message. This form is unprepared. This is usually the fallout of a recent development. So if you've had any developments done in Priority, sometimes that's a form that's been affected may be unprepared. So providing there's no problem with such change, the fix is really simple. It's to run the hyperlinked program, form preparation, and this will usually solve the issue very quickly. What we tend to find, however, is that users don't have the privileges to run this program. So if you try to run it, you get another message that says, oh, privileges required, you can't run this. You don't need to give users privileges to the whole system management part of Priority. You can give them just privileges to this program. And what we find is that it saves you time, because you don't need to raise a support call, you don't need to phone anyone, you don't need to wait for Meditech in any way to log onto your server and run something. You can usually resolve the problem yourself. If you want to find out why it happened, you can report it, but it doesn't stop you then from working. So you can find this program in the following path. These presentations are all going to be available on our website afterwards, so I encourage you to check back and get the path and make the change, or to contact support if you'd like any help with doing so. So that's number 5. Moving on to number 4. Number 4 on our list is users struggling to find a particular report. So we get a lot of service calls that says, where's the report that does this? Where's this particular report about margins, for example, or sales, purchasing? What I encourage you to do is actually to check two things to check before you come to support, although we'll be happy to help in any case if you're interested in finding a report. But these are things that might help you save time first. First of all would be to use the entity search that I demonstrated at the start of the presentation. Search by keyword. If you think your report is about margins, search for margin and just see what R-type records come back. If you think it's about sales, just try a few different keywords and see if you get anything. You can use the help button to actually see a description of the reports that come back in the search results, just to see if they tend to match what you're looking for. The other thing to do would be to actually use Priority's menu system. Although it's large, it is organised, and every single menu has a report section to it. So, for example, if you think your report is sales related, you go in the sales orders menu, you've got a sales order reports menu in there. The same is true for purchasing. If I just pop back to our system, purchasing, purchase orders, purchase order reports, it really does follow a pattern. And under each one in here, you can right-click on them to see the help. And once you find the report you want, you can actually add it to your favourites and homepage from here as well. So just a couple of things to try, but of course if you can't find what you're looking for, do contact support and we'll be happy to help you.
Sorry, again, are all those icons still in all the other versions as well?
Which ones? The entity types?
Yeah.
So the PDF coloured icons are in the web interface, so that's regardless of version. I think it's this interface came out about version 17. But if you're working in the Windows client, you have, instead of letters, you've got icons that represent the types of entities. So a report is, I think, is a clipboard, and a form is a white square with some lines on it, and a program is a cog. So there's still a differentiation between them, but it's in some ways, this is a bit more user-friendly, so I recommend, if you're not working on the web interface yet, to have a look into working in a web interface, and then you'll have the letters exactly as you see them on the screen. If you need any help identifying what the entities are, there's anything that pops up you're not sure about, let me know. I'll have a look with you. So that's users struggling to find a particular report in the system. The number 3 issue tends to be emails not sending out priority. So the important thing to understand is actually most emails, except for ones that are sending on a delay from the BPM flowchart, are actually being sent from the PC that triggered it. So if a user runs into a business rule that sends an email, but their email isn't working on their computer for some reason, then the rule won't trigger, the email won't be sent. So if you think that has happened, the first thing to try would be to actually try just sending a test email from the user's PC. You can do that from the composed mail form, as seen in the screenshot. The reason I say this is essentially it will help speed things up. I think either way you'll need to raise a support call for us to look into it further, but it will just really help us to know whether the user can send email or not, because if they can send email, then we need to understand why the rule didn't trigger in the first place. If they can't send email, then that's what we need to help you troubleshoot. So try that first. So the same applies on the server side of your if the email that didn't send was one of your delayed BPM emails, you want to test this same method on the server and see whether the email's working there. But as well as that, you want to check the scheduler service is running, and you want to check that the status mail procedure is running in the company that you're expecting the rule to trigger in, because that's the thing that sort of checks for delayed rules and picks up the changes and sends the emails.
Can you set a business rule up to send, like, your customer invoices all in one go, where we go send and print and do individually? Can you set a business rule up to send them all in one go?
That, I believe, is covered by macros in the latest version. So Priority have improved the way their macros work, and it now allows you to run things between 2 different forms or run a program. So if you had a set of records that you wanted to run the action for each one, the macro should allow you to do that. So that would be through macro rather than business rule.
Okay.
Can you set the emails such that, so like in our sales office, everybody's got their individual emails, but we all send out a sales ad. Can you get it so that everybody by default it comes out a sales ad?
You can set that for rules that come out the BPM flowchart, but not for business rules. So business rules will still always execute from the user's computer, and generally it will be using their Outlook or whatever's installed on there. But if you've got things that you could set up based on statuses, you can set those rules to send on a delay and be picked up by the server. So if you've got a certain email address, like a central one set up on the server, it will pick those up. It sounds like something we may need to discuss as part of a service call to just help you get the best out of that. So please do raise something, and I'll be happy to help you.
How many things can you add to your favourites, just out of curiosity? When you said something
Oh, yes.
How many, is there a limit that you can...
There used to be a limit, I believe the limit was 19, but they've expanded and they've given you the functionality now to have like sub-menus inside it. So I'd have to find out if there was a hard limit, but I think it's not something that you're likely to hit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's worth checking out, because you can, if I show you quickly on here, you can, if you right-click on something and add it to your favourites, you can add folders, and you can like add them in the folders, and you can have like a whole hierarchy in there. So it's, yeah, I definitely recommend looking into that. Actually, it's very useful. So emails. Just to close out on the emails side of things, if you are having problems with emails, do raise something with support. But if you can check first whether the user can send mail, or if it's server side that's the relevant service is running, then do, because it will help speed things up with support. So moving on to our number 2. In at number 2, system being unavailable. So.
Number 2. Something like the Yorkshire, sorry.
Yeah, that's it. It's a proper countdown. I want to keep you all focused to get you excited for our number 1. So number 2 is system being unavailable. So unfortunately, this does happen quite a lot. I'll get a phone call. Cherry, we can't work, we can't get in our system, can't open forms. This can be for a number of reasons. So the most common causes are the web services not running for some reason. There's so many reasons why this could happen, but the first thing to check would be to go onto your IAS server and have a look for, you see the 2 services over here, Priority App Service, Priority Redis Service. If you are working in an old version of Priority, it may be called Priority.NET Service instead of Priority App Service. If they're not running, run them. If you can't run them, it should give you an error. That should help you troubleshoot why they're not running. The IAS also needs to be active. So another cause for the system being unavailable is server space. We often find that the disk may be all jammed up due to a large log file, a large temporary file, a large attachment. That could be a number of reasons. So I recommend this software here called TreeSizeFree. This is available for free online, and it scans a particular drive and it looks at what's taken up the space and what the timestamps are. It's a good place to start if you think your server is getting full. So if you're maintaining your own server, you want to have some alerts set up for the disk drives being full. Now, of course, if that is the case and you're hosted, or if you're in the cloud, you don't need to worry about this. This is something that ultimately shouldn't happen, but if it does, then it won't be you that needs to handle it. If you do find that you've got database log files that have grown, that's something that you don't want to just delete them. You want to send that to support so we can have a look with you. That's quite often the case, really. Moving on then to our number 1 most common complaint is the system being slow. So in this case, the first thing you want to check is your network. Often the slowness is actually the network speed at the server end or the user's end. Your IT provider can check this with you. The next thing to check is actually the server itself. Is something taking up lots of resources? What's your CPU and your memory saying? Is it really high? Again, this only really applies if you're managing your own server. If you're hosted or in the cloud, then ultimately this should already be picked up because of the monitoring tools that are available. And support will deal with it with you. So the other thing to check, you'll see our screenshot at the top right of list of recent processes. This form is really useful to see who ran what and when. So if you're experiencing slowness and then it gets better, or you're experiencing periodic slowness, you can use this form to see who was running what and when, from which PC and how long it took. And you can see a lot of detail in there. So it's worth checking that out. Now, if you can't figure out from the tools I've mentioned, or if you're experiencing persistent slowness, or even persistent failures, so it applies to our number 2 issue as well, then you should consider using Aim Better. Aim Better is something that's been mentioned in one of the earlier presentations, but it's a really, really good tool that we've now partnered with. It really helps the support team get to the detail of where a problem is. So it's a lot quicker than us having to manually look into something. It's the kind of bit between the DBA and the IT person and us. Like, we know about ERP, and your IT people know about your server. DBA knows about the database. Now, the glue that sticks with that together is Aim Better. So it helps us get to the root of the problem quickly. Do you need more memory? Did a process get stuck in the database? What caused it? Essentially, Aim Better will diagnose that why. My experience in installing Aim Better is within usually a day or two of having it installed, if someone's experiencing a problem, then we will have exactly what's caused that problem and exactly what the recommendation is. So it costs a lot of your time and resources and money if a user can't work or can't work fast. So this tool is really invaluable, and I recommend getting in touch with support if you'd like to know any more about it, or if you feel you're having a performance issue that you'd like us to help you look into using Aim Better. Thank you for listening. Thank you all.
Great job on there.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. We got to number 1. Got some. I'm wired in because I'm being recorded, so I think I'll have to wait to be released.
Oh, right, okay.